Hello and welcome to New Central Television. I am Lekon Onobanjo. The top stories at this hour. Senate spokesman warns against push for part-time legislature. Federal High Court declines jurisdiction over case of suspended Edo local government chairman. UN peacekeeping mission in DR Congo calls for restraint amid rising tensions in the country's volatile eastern region. Details to come your way shortly. We begin with legislative matters. Senate spokesperson Yemi Adaramodu has warned that Nigeria's democracy could suffer if the National Assembly is made a part-time institution. Adaramodu responded to former INEC chairman Atahiru Jega's call for a part-time legislature with reduced moments. He said, and I quote, "If the parliament is on part-time, then democracy is on part-time," stressing that no democracy thrives by weakening its legislature. He argued that lawmakers do more than make laws. They also perform oversight and attend to extensive constituency needs. Adaramodu noted that parliamentarians often provide personal support to constituents and remain the most accessible arm of government. To help us make sense of this, we're joined by a legal practitioner, Togolese. Thank you so much, Toho, for joining us on the news.
You're welcome, Lekon.
So is it true that Nigeria's democracy will suffer if its legislature becomes part-time?
Yes, I agree with the Senate spokesman, Senator Yemi. I totally agree, because if you look at it and if you look at the language of our constitution, the legislative arm is the beacon of democracy. As a matter of fact, if you look at the way the Nigeria system is structured in a way whereby we have the equality representation across the state, then we have the representation by the House of Rep based on population. So this is a means where the people are represented. And if we make it a part-time schedule or as canvassed, I believe is a misconception, and it's as a result of the lack of awareness of the duties and responsibility of the legislative arm of government in Nigeria based on their outputs now.
What is the lack of awareness that you refer to?
Well, the lack of awareness begins when you see statesmen, when you see political players canvass or call for order, like the confab, calling for youth representation, calling from youth conference, calling for sectional conference and all those stuff, regional conference, for them to discuss and for them to discuss the way forward for Nigeria. The Constitution has made it clear. If you look at Section 4, and if you look at the Section 4 of the Constitution, it spells out the clear responsibility of the legislative arm of government. And if only we have an effective legislative arm of government, those calls wouldn't have been made. Those calls wouldn't have been made. And those calls are not necessary, because we have a legislative arm of government looking at the reason canvassed by the Senate spokesman. You discover that it's a shame that he restricted the functions of the legislative arm of government to giving aid to people. That is really a shame. And that, another thing again, puts the legislative arm of government in the heart of the people to be an arm of government that is not functional.
So how come democracy will not be on recess when the lawmakers go on recess? Because some people feel that it could be cost efficient if the legislature is on part-time. It would not stop them from still carrying out their legislative duties.
Well, Lekon, first of all, you look at the topography of Nigeria. You should look at the topography of Nigeria. Nigeria is a country made of diverse ethnic cultural group, and also with a touch of religion becoming the center of unification. So if you look at it from the perspective of the legislative arm going on recess, putting democracy to a stop, I think that is a wrong perception is a total wrong perception. Outside the recess, even the executive arm of government, they go, their recess is like their annual leave, let me use the word, an holiday, which the executive are also entitled to. But let's look at it from the perspective. Look at the functions or the duties of the National Assembly. One is to make laws for the peace, is to make law for peace, order, and good governance in Nigeria. There is also look at the issue of control of public fund. If you look at it, without the National Assembly, you will see that the budget or every activities of the executive cannot scale through. And you also look at the function of approving appointments. These are issues that are basically that can be run daily basis. The only thing I will canvass for, or the only thing I think the misconception we have in the public domain, is that the bicameral system of legislature in Nigeria have not been fully up to their responsibility. Yeah. In Nigeria as a country, the legislative arm of government cannot be put on part-time if we only have a legislative arm of government that knows what the responsibility and what they ought to do.
So then if the legislature has not really lived up to its billing in terms of its duties, does it now mean that the Nigerian National Assembly has not exhibited or upheld the values of democracy?
For me, I believe in the principle of that the quality of leaders you produce is a reflection of the capacity of the individuals they rule. That is my own belief. So we are not, we as Nigerians, or we those who are politicians who see politics as a career rather than a way of life. I think the fact remains that particularly this current National Assembly is really a shame, and is going to go down in the history of Nigeria as, we are not going to say, I think I'm going to say they should be the worst, because we don't want to see something that is more complex and that is more subjective than this one we are having now. One, I'll give you a clear example. I'm aware of a senator who celebrated giving members of his constituency 50,000 naira. That is the duty of a senator. Then you will now see that, during the time of Obasanjo, that is where they sneak in these constituency projects, because they have nothing to do with execution of projects. But I think Obasanjo find a way of trying to pamper them or trying to put them in check, because money does everything in Nigeria. That was where, if you look at the constitution, and the functions of the National Assembly, you discover that there is nowhere it is stated that constituency project. And the oversight function which they ought to carry out, you see that is in shambles. We've seen as the days goes by, even the executive disregard the Senate, disregard the National Assembly, because of they don't know their honors, they don't know what they are doing. If you can see a spokesman who can come out and count the functions of the legislative and to be giving aid, attending a naming ceremony, I think we as a country, we need to be in a sober reflection mood towards the purpose and function of the legislative arm. But I am not, and I think I'm of the view that part-time at this point in time in Nigeria is not an option.
Thank you so much, Toho Seriwoja, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.
You're welcome, Lekon.
And away from legislative stories to the judiciary, the Federal High Court in Benin City has declined jurisdiction in the case filed by the People's Democratic Party and the suspended 18 local government chairmen in Edo State. Presiding Judge Justice Babatunde Quadri ruled on the matter on Friday. News Central's correspondent Israel Eferobo has more.
Brief but decisive hearing at the Federal High Court in Benin City. The suit filed by the People's Democratic Party and the 18 suspended council chairmen seeking to overturn their suspension was dismissed, at least for now. The local government chairmen were suspended in December 2024 by the Edo State House of Assembly following a petition from Governor Monday Okwebolo. The governor accused them of insubordination and failure to submit financial records.
The court gave a decision today. And of course, the court declined jurisdiction because the Federal High Court can only adjudicate on matters within the provisions of Section 251, Sub 1 of the 1999 Constitution that lists areas for which the Federal High Court has jurisdiction. And the court even said that even if you have a decision of the State High Court, the Federal High Court is not a place to come and enforce it. So the court declined jurisdiction, describing it as an abuse of judicial process.
Barrister Nwata explained the legal basis for the court's decision.
It was a matter that involves the interpretation of the state law, just as the court rightly noted, falls within the provisions of Section 272 of the Constitution that confers the State High Court with unlimited jurisdiction. And the court even said that even if you have a decision of the State High Court, the Federal High Court is not a place to come and enforce it. But rather, much as the defendants in that case have a right of appeal, you can go to the State High Court to talk of enforcement. So the court declined jurisdiction, describing it as an abuse of judicial process.
Counsel to the People's Democratic Party and the 18 suspended local government chairmen unveiled their next line of action.
All the court did was deliver ruling to decline jurisdiction, saying that since there are other similar matters in the Edo State judiciary, that the matter should be transferred to the Edo State High Court, for the Edo State High Court to determine the question of whether the Edo State House of Assembly has the power to suspend or remove the democratically elected chairman, that the Federal High Court transfer the matter for continuation in the Edo State High Court.
With this ruling, the battle over who controls the grassroots in Edo State shifts back to the state's judiciary, leaving the suspended chairman once again in limbo. In Edo State, for News Central, Israel Ifirobo.
And now to get more reactions about this development, we're joined by the counsel to the Edo State government, Barrister Andre Nwata. I want to believe. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the news. Okay, so we seem not to have established connection with Andre Nwata, but definitely we try to do that to get more details from him. In the meantime, in Edo State, Governor Tompolo has launched a 1 billion naira interest-free loan scheme for traders and farmers, an initiative in line with President Tinubu's Renewed Hope agenda. The launch, held at the state capital, Benin City, aims to empower more than 5,000 small business owners with loans ranging from 200,000 naira to 500,000 naira. Governor Tompolo described the scheme as a fulfillment of his campaign promise and a move to ensure real support reaches grassroots beneficiaries. And so I understand that the counsel to the Edo State government, Barrister Andre Nwata, has finally joined us to look at the powers that the Edo State government has in suspending the local government chairman, and of course the fact that it has been transferred from the Federal High Court to the state's court. So thank you so much, Barrister Andrew Nwata, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's get
to our viewers at home.
All right, you're welcome, sir. So let's get more details from you as regards the position of the Edo State government on the Federal High Court transferring the local government chairman case to the State High Court.
Yeah, thank you. The news of that decision was well received by the Edo State government. And let me quickly remind you and our viewers at home that the governor acted based on the provision of an extant law passed by the Edo State House of Assembly since 2000, that's the Edo State Local Government Law of 2000. And as such, that law has not been questioned in any court of law in Nigeria as we speak. Even one of those two cases that the court noted, as the Federal High Court noted, is before the Edo State High Court. One had to do with Section 10 of the law, and the other one had to do with, I think, just a mere interpretation of that same provision of the law, not Section 20. So the Federal High Court, in its wisdom yesterday, said Section 20 of the local government law is a state law for which only the State High Court, under by virtue of Section 272 of the 1999 Constitution, has jurisdiction over. And even besides, this issue has to do with a state government decision as against that of local government chairman. which does not fall within the provision of Section 251, Sub 1 of the Constitution, that lists out areas where the Federal High Court has jurisdiction. For those of us who want to look at history, the Federal High Court started as a revenue court. It's a specialized court. It's like going before the National Industrial Court for a similar action. And I think the Federal High Court was right in declining jurisdiction. And by that case has died the natural death before the Federal High Court. Of course, the transfer does not mean that for some of the defendants that are not too comfortable, they cannot explore a further right of appeal. So I think that is for the legal team to decide. But we are still looking at the possibility of an appeal, because the court was supposed to strike out that action, because the action itself was not just an abuse, but offends the principle of res judicata. Because there's a similar decision the Chief Judge of Edo State had given, where the court only made declaratory statements without any order. And at the appropriate time, those steps will be taken.
All right, so where does...
commend the Federal High Court on that decision.
All right, so where do we place the Nigeria Supreme Court's rule, that's judgments in July 11, 2024, that actually grants autonomy to the local government?
The fact that the Supreme Court gave that judgment is even what we are very happy about, because it deals with the issue of autonomy. Mind you, what happened in Edo State was not a case of outright dissolution. It was a case of suspension by virtue of Section 20 of the Edo State Local Government Law. And that law was not just made in limbo or in isolation. Section 7 gives the State House of Assembly the power to legislate for local government. That's the second leg that deals with the power of the House of Assembly to make a law for the function, finance, administration, and structure of local governments in Nigeria. It was on the basis of that provision of the Constitution this law was made. And for us, we are very pleased with what the Federal High Court said yesterday, that it is the State High Court that has jurisdiction. And I think the plaintiffs in that case, the claimants in that case, namely the PDP that sponsored those 18 persons who were also co-claimants, will do the needful.
But we heard that the chairmen were suspended and removed. Kindly help us clarify that part.
They were later impeached, because this case has nothing to do with the removal, their impeachment. This particular case that they filed at the Federal High Court had to do with their suspension. They still have individual cases on their impeachment across various High Court divisions of the state. And we believe that the High Court will do justice to that other one, because they were properly impeached, if you ask me.
Okay, so help us get clarification on the allegations that billions of naira were remitted to certain persons in the state under dubious means, and that actually necessitated the governor to move for their suspension.
Yeah, thank you, because there was a particular account where, that was labeled environmental security, and on a monthly basis, the immediate past administration led by Obaseki, they withdraw as much as 800 million. And when this new government came, they could not account for it. And these monies were collected for over a year. And the information at our disposal was to the effect that this money was spent for election, which of course is not the purpose and defeats the whole idea behind that decision that has to do with financial autonomy for local government. And as I speak to you, Edo State local government councils enjoy financial autonomy. Local government chairman, I can give you an example. My own local government, local government, the chairman there, does all kinds of projects. He's into asphalting of roads. He gives out vehicles to security agencies like the police and others. And I think that is what that Supreme Court judgment was about, to grant financial autonomy to local government and not to allow governors to unilaterally dissolve democratically elected councils. But the law is that it is councillors that have the power to impeach a local government chairman. That was what happened in 17 local governments in Edo State. And the governor under Section 20, all our local government law has the right to suspend an every local government chairman.
So peradventure,
done about that position, that remains the law.
Peradventure, before I let you go,
it remains the law.
Yeah, I understand. Before I let you go, peradventure, the State High Court now eventually passes a sentence that favors the local government chairman. What would be the next step for the Edo State government?
I don't think the word sentence is appropriate. It's a civil case. The matter has been transferred there, and it's like a newborn baby. I don't agree with the lawyer for PDP and the local government chairman. I mean, Igbe, who said it's for continuation. The matter is starting afresh. starting the NOFO is now before the Edo State High Court. Though the files have been transferred, but of course the facts are different. So when we get to that bridge, we'll proceed. But I can assure you that that case is dead on arrival.
Thank you so much, Barrister Andrew Mwata, for clarifying this particular issue with us on the news.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We're going to break right now. When we return, Tompolo backs federal policies, commends federal government security initiatives. We'll be back with the details, of course, after the short time out. You can join us again. For staying with us, we now tell you that Chairman of Tantita Security Services Government, Tompolo, popularly known as Tompolo, has urged Nigerians to remain patient as the Tinubu administration's economic reforms begin to yield results. Referencing Tantita's collaboration with the federal government, Tompolo says efforts to secure oil infrastructure and waterways have led to increased crude output and boosted government revenue. He made the remarks during Edgar Daniel, his technical advisor at the Presidential Amnesty Program, during the launch of a grassroots mobilization campaign in support of President Tinubu.
We've seen the upward production of oil and gas. This contract with Tantita has brought about social stability in the Niger Delta. It is not where we want to be, but it is the direction, the vista we want to travel to get to our trajectory, to make the country functional for every one of us. More money means money for investment in education and other social programs, healthcare, infrastructural development, better economic environment.
I can tell you categorically that virtually every region of this country have benefited immensely under this administration. They should also look back and see what their children are benefiting. And they should also open their minds to tap into the goodies in this government. There are a lot of goodies. Virtually all zones were captured in this administration in terms of employment and an appointment.
Away from that, peace advocates in Nigeria have joined their counterparts across the globe to call for peace among citizens living in grassroots communities. This was during a high-level engagement organized by the Global Peace Foundation Nigeria, aimed at bringing together traditional rulers, religious leaders, civil society groups, women advocates and youth in Arraigned Banki community in Kaduna State in a bid to end conflicts and violent extremism in the state. News Central's correspondent Aishat Saliu compiled this report.
For decades, communities in Kaduna State have grappled with ethno-religious crises that have claimed hundreds of lives and destroyed properties worth millions of naira. To address this, peace advocates are charting a new path aimed at promoting dialogue and religious tolerance in a bid to eradicate conflict and violence, with citizens at the grassroots playing a key role.
Let's talk to each other. What are those areas we don't understand about ourselves, so that it will further brings us together, unite us together, and improve our level of tolerance among ourselves. And those of us who know this community know how important it is, and we don't want it to ever happen again. So we're engaging them in understanding the importance of working together, dialoguing to solve problems.
The traditional ruler of Arraigned Banki, Mahmoud Galadima, commended the strides made in local peace-building efforts. He urged other communities to adopt a dialogue-based approach in resolving disputes and strengthening social cohesion.
For the other places that are not in this situation to embrace peace and dialogue so that they can exist peacefully.
Residents in the community highlighted the transformation in Arraigned Banki, where Muslims and Christians now live in harmony, describing it as a model for other communities to emulate to foster peace and unity.
There's an improvement of relationship between Christians and Muslims. It goes together, and then it has really helped us we begin to see the improvement, peace is coming back to Hayambanki, then we have peace in this community, Hayambanki. But due to one thing or the other, then misunderstanding started coming.
This is to live in peace as Hayambanki. We are trying and hoping that nothing will happen to any religion in Hayambanki. Pagans, Christian and Muslim, we are living in peace, and we pray to others to live in peace like Hayambanki.
Hayambanki community prides itself as the first settlement in Kaduna North local government area that enjoys a lot of goodwill, not only from the local authorities, but one that has created a sense of belonging to all residents, irrespective of ethnic, religious and cultural beliefs.
Now, media practitioners have been challenged to remain objective in the coverage of human rights stories, irrespective of daunting challenges. As a two-day Amnesty International media training in Jos, Plateau State, key stakeholders explore ways to ensuring facts are verified and presented correctly, avoiding misinformation or misrepresentation. News Central's Chizoba Yonwe tells us more.
Drawing journalists from different media platforms under the correspondent chapel of the Nigeria Union of Journalists in Plateau State, the issue of human rights abuse was flagged as one major issue journalists need to improve upon for a safer and more peaceful society.
Some people don't even understand the Nigerian Constitution, and they're even in the media. So sometimes they don't even know what they infringe on people's rights. They don't even know when they infringe on their victims' rights. They don't even know when just reporting can cause more havoc.
The press should persevere and help lead Nigerians to hold the government to account, and to also to look inwards actually to understand why human rights journalism is very important.
This training is going to equip journalists with the necessary skill, with the necessary knowledge, and it's also going to expand and build the landscape of journalism.
The two-day training exposed journalists to evolving topical issues.
You have to always strike a balance, always make sure that nobody is offended, the rights of people are defended, and as a journalist, you also have a right to defend yourself.
I have to be careful with choice of words. I have to be careful with the tone of my report.
Despite the knowledge gained, some other challenges still need to be surmounted.
When you pay somebody well, when you take care of the person well, the person gives you the best. But when you don't take care of the person, there is every tendency that you might not get exactly what you are supposed to get.
The authorities and the general public should allow us to do our job the way we've been trained, the way it's expected.
In all of these, all hope isn't lost. There's still a way forward for better reportage of human rights activities.
I want to be more gender sensitive in my reporting, that I ask myself, how is this person painted? Am I being sensitive in my reporting of this gender, whether male or female?
So identifying these violations becomes challenges to us, because what you think is a violation of the right of somebody you are trying to protect may not be necessarily a violation.
Let empathy, let objectivity, let the love for the truth really guide what we do.
At the end of these two-day events here on the plateau, one cannot overemphasize the need for training and retraining for media practitioners in order for them to remain objective in their reportage of human rights activities. In Plateau State, for News Central, Chizoba Anyoe.
Let's now tell you about labor certification. The University of Ilorin has emphasized the need for proper training of future labor leaders and required certification so as to meet up with their key responsibilities, which is holding government accountable. This was during the second matriculation ceremony of the Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies, Ilorin, one of its affiliated institutions. The Vice-Chancellor of the university was represented by the head of academics of the center. Professor Yahaya Imam urged the new students to see the opportunity to equip themselves with relevant skills and certification as a serious national responsibility. The Central Sumaya Abubakar reports.
Once known only for its training workshops and policy dialogue, the Michael Imodu Institute is gradually establishing itself as an academic center for labor studies. At its second matriculation ceremony since securing academic affiliation with the University of Ilorin, The institute formally admitted another batch of students into its bachelor's degree program in labor-related disciplines. The director of distance learning and head of academics of the center, Silvanus Adamade, says that the institute's evolution into a degree awarding center is steadily taking shape.
This matriculation program signals males' rise to prominence as the ultimate destination for workers' education, beyond our traditional job training courses and workshops. Last November, 20 pioneer students graduated with various classes of degrees from the program as an eloquent testimony of the overall progress Minis has made to impact Nigeria's industrial relations landscape.
Representative of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin, whose accreditation backs the degree program, says that the university has high expectations for the center, especially in meeting very high academic standards. He urged the new students to see the opportunity as a serious responsibility.
Ilorin does not tolerate laziness. We have our lectures schedule, we have our examination schedule, and we have invigilation schedule, and all these things are attached. There are rules attached to them. For instance, for you to qualify to write an exam, you must have 75% attendance.
For the pioneer students, the occasion comes with both pride and pressure.
I'm very excited and very glad that I could be given an opportunity to be here in this school. So many people don't have the opportunity to be here, so I pay attention to my studies by reading and impressing my lecturers.
With this second matriculation completed, the Michael Imodu institution is gradually transforming from a policy institute to a full-blown academic institution.
Away from that, the French government has called for stronger international cooperation, particularly between Africa and the West, to combat the growing threat of plastic pollution in the world's oceans. The Deputy Ambassador of the French Embassy in Nigeria, Jean-François Hesperou, made the call during a plastic waste awareness program held in Abuja, as he emphasized the escalating presence of plastics in marine environments, which poses a severe threat to global ecosystems and human health. Hesperou says that the French government will support global partnerships in addressing the challenge and has dedicated an estimated 750,000 euros to support recycling projects, including the installation of plastic micro-recycling plants in various Nigerian tertiary institutions.
A global strategy by France to not only act at the global level, but also at the level of the communities. So we have a double approach, top-down, but also a bottom-up. With civil society organization, we are helping these organizations to work, to do trainings, and we have from time to time bigger funds. For example, we have funds of 100,000 euros now, which is about helping universities in recycling plastic.
Whatever pollution start here in Nigeria may end in France, in US. So this pollution has no border, and whatever plastic I throw up in France in the street may end up here in Nigeria. So this is a common issue we have, and that's why we think we have to work together to develop solutions.
Coming up on the news, Kenyan police officer arraigned over death of teacher in custody. We'll bring you more details and the rest of the stories in a short while. Do stay with us. From other parts of Africa, we tell you that the United Nations peacekeeping mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo is calling for restraint amid rising tensions in the country's volatile eastern region. Speaking at a press briefing, MONUSCO Chief Bintu Keita said the mission is working to de-escalate the ongoing conflict between the Congolese government and M23 rebels. Fighting has intensified in recent weeks, forcing thousands to flee their homes and deepening an already critical humanitarian crisis. Keita reaffirmed MONUSCO's commitment to protecting civilians and backing dialogue for a peaceful resolution.
Dans un esprit d'écoute et d'échange. Cette visite intervient à un moment critique, dans un contexte de tensions persistantes. Il y a quelques jours de mon briefing devant le Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies. Aujourd'hui, j'ai rencontré le leadership de l'Alliance Fleuve Congo, AFC M23. Cette rencontre s'inscrit dans le cadre d'une continuité d'efforts conjoints entamés depuis quelques mois au profit de la population. Comme vous le savez, avec la facilitation du CICR, du gouvernement congolais, de l'AFC M23 et de la MONUSCO, 1359 éléments des FARDC et de la PLC ont été transférés de Goma à Kinshasa. La MONUSCO reste engagée à appuyer toutes les initiatives susceptibles de favoriser une désescalade des tensions. Les responsables de l'AFC M23 ont exprimé leur volonté de trouver une solution pacifique à la crise. La MONUSCO reste également disposée à apporter des appuis nécessaires à toutes les initiatives de paix en cours.
We're now in Kenya, where a police officer, James Mukwana, has appeared in court in connection with the death of 31-year-old Albert Odwang, a teacher who died last weekend while in police custody. He had been arrested over social media posts criticizing a senior police official. Odwang's death has sparked outrage and reignited public anger over police brutality in Kenya. Rights groups and ordinary citizens are demanding justice, describing the incident as yet another example of unchecked abuse by law enforcement.
We shall take a date for the ruling, whether he is going to be in custody or released. Are we together?
We are together.
So we can have it on the 20th of this month for ruling.
We, however, wish to say that, like one of the people who was arrested yesterday, we are informed is a police constable from Central Police Station. We take note of that, but we wish to say that a police constable is the junior-most officer in the hierarchy of the police and does not have control or does not run a police station. What that means, therefore, is that we expect much more from these investigations. We expect to see more senior people taking responsibility. We expect to see people who are the masterminds of this heinous act that took the life of our brother taking responsibility.
The stories the policemen are telling all the security operators is so inconsistent, which is very clear is a lie, because to tell a lie is the most difficult thing I've ever seen. But to say the truth, you just say it is, and it will coincide with everything else that we know. So we don't want distractions. The officers are giving too many information, which are too much contradicting for strategic reasons that they know, and we are aware of those things. So what I want to tell Kenyans is that we are mourning. Let the family mourn their way.
Pia kuona wengine wakishikwa na wengine wa ngazi za juu. Kama tunavyojua, afisa constable ni moja ya vitengo vya chini kabisa. Huyu constable hawezi kuwa anafanya kazi bila ya amri. Kwa hivyo tunataka kuona na wengine pia wakishikwa wa ngazi za juu. Tunaelezewa technician amekuja ambaye alihusika na ile CCTV pia ni kama amekamatwa tunavyoelezewa. Huyo technician alikuja pale kwa kazi. Aliitwa na nani? Inasemekana alilipwa 3,000. Alilipwa na nani? Kwa hivyo haya maswali lazima yaweze kujibiwa. Tusitafute sababu ya kushika.
Away from the east to the southern part of Africa, in Mtata, a local shelter is offering urgent relief to residents displaced by the devastating floods in South Africa's Eastern Cape province. At least 78 people have died, with entire communities left in ruins. Namakogo Mufuna from our community association says the shelter is providing essential support, including hot meals, warm bedding and donated clothing to those mostly affected and in need. Relief operations are ongoing as government agencies and volunteers race to assist displaced families and restore basic services.
Abantu bonzakele, izindlu zabantu ziwile, abantu basweleka, and i-survivors, that is abasindileyo, bagqalwe kumahholo okuhlala. So singulo mbutho ke ngoku phakathi kwabantu abancedayo. Size apha ke njengoba nibona abantu bakhona apha, sizonikezela ngokutya siphekile, sizonikezela ngempahla. Singabantu.
And then what abantu bahlelise kula mahholo? Outside of Africa, emergency teams are assessing the aftermath of an Iranian missile strike in the central Israeli city of Rishon LeZion. The attack came early on Saturday as Iran launched a wave of missiles in response to a deadly assault on its nuclear and military facilities. That earlier strike reportedly killed several top Iranian generals, prompting a swift and forceful retaliation. Damage assessments are ongoing and emergency crews are working to secure the affected areas and assist any casualties. In sport, Togolese international Sabirou Bassa-Djeri, who guarded the net for Enyimba FC in the 2021-2022 season, has passed away at the age of 37 following a prolonged illness. His death comes as a profound loss to both his home nation and the Nigerian club he represented. Bassa-Djeri joined Enyimba in November 2020 after spells across West and Central Africa, including stints at Cotton Sport and AC Semasi. He earned 15 caps for Togo between 2017 and 2019, establishing himself as a reliable presence between the posts. The Confederation of African Football underscored the impact of his departure, with CAF President Patrice Motsepe extending condolences to family, teammates and friends. British boxing star Anthony Joshua is in Accra ahead of the Battle of the Beasts boxing event set for Friday night at the Bukom Boxing Arena. The two-time world heavyweight champion will not compete but is attending as a special guest, boosting excitement around the high-profile event. The event features 10 bouts with local and international fighters. Highlights include Abubakar Kamoko, son of Bukom Banku, facing Stephen Ankon. Joshua's visit also honors Bukom's rich boxing legacy and comes months after the tragic in-ring death of Nigerian boxer Gabriel Olanrewaju at the same venue. Away from that, former welterweight champion Kamaru Usman successfully weighed in at 171 pounds for his UFC Atlanta main event against Joaquin Buckley, marking his return to the division after over a year. Buckley also hit the 171-pound limit, setting the stage for their anticipated clash on Saturday. Usman, who last fought at 170 pounds in March 2023, seeks redemption after a title loss to Leon Edwards. Buckley, on a 6-fight win streak since dropping from middleweight, has surged in the welterweight rankings with victories over Colby Covington and Stephen Thompson. All 26 fighters made weight for the events, including Ross Namajunas and Miranda Maverick, who both weighed in at 126 pounds for the co-main flyweight bouts. And that's all at this hour, but then we look at our top stories before we go. Senate spokesman has warned against push for part-time legislature. Federal High Court has declined jurisdiction over case of suspended Edo local government chairman. We also told you that UN peacekeeping mission in DR Congo has called for restraint amid rising tensions in the country's volatile eastern region. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. And you can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Also watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.